This is The Speaking Show. I'm David Newman, and you're tuned in to the #1 podcast for speakers, consultants, and experts who want to speak more profitably. Well, my special guest today, you are in for a real treat. It's Newman versus Newman. I am here with Matt Newman, professional speaker, amazing author, cancer survivor, keynoter, financial services executive. This man is a walking, talking Swiss Army knife. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me, David. And it's an honor to be with someone with such a wonderful last name as well, too.
I know, right? I mean, this is like a Newman love fest. I was watching one of your videos and you were retelling the story that I want to hear about here in a minute, about when you were initially diagnosed and the doctors were saying, Mr. Newman this and Mr. Newman that. And I'm like, oh my God, I have cancer. And it's like, no, it's Matt's story. It's not my story this time, or it's not my story yet. It's never a question of is cancer going to touch our lives? It's a question of when and where and who, but it's definitely going to touch all of us. I know that's one of your key messages also. Take us back to the beginning. Walk us through your professional career and then your cancer journey that led you to the work that you're doing today.
It's funny. One of the things I talk a lot about is the flaws that are actually based in the U.S. education system. And one of the reasons I go into that in detail is that I was blessed that I was born into the financial services industry. My father was a financial advisor. My uncle was a financial advisor. My brother went into this industry. I went into this industry. You learn these things at a young age that make no sense to you until later on when you go, I understand that now. And that's why leadership from our parents and mentors, whatever it's going to be, is extremely important as we start to grow to get better experience from people who've been through something. So I graduated from the University of Delaware in 1996. And I remember Maya Angelou just gave our speech. I'm standing on the football field and my mom and my dad come walking in there. And I'm so proud. I'm wearing this beautiful blue gown and blue cap. And my dad looks at me and he goes, so what do you want to do now? I said, well, Dad, I'm going to become a financial advisor. I'm going to join your firm. I will clean my language up for this talk. My father's from the Bronx. He made it very explicit to me that there is no bleeping way that was going to happen. And I was angry and I was pissed. What he was giving me is one of the greatest lessons in life. And that lesson is there's no free lunches. Go out, earn it, find if it's something for you. If it's something you like, we'll talk. But you got to go figure out if it's your calling or not. So I started working as something called a wholesaler. And what a wholesaler is in the financial services industry is very similar to others as well, too. There's companies that manufacture mutual funds, annuities, life insurance, a 401k.
Is this like John Hancock, Vanguard, companies like that?
That's exactly right. 100% correct. And what they'll do is they'll then send salespeople who are, have all the licenses of financial advisors and whatnot out to talk with advisors and try to show them where their products will fit. So it's almost like a middleman, if you will. And when I started, I remember my father saying to me, there's 3 lessons I want you to take. One is that if you don't believe in the products you have, or someone in your family doesn't own them, don't sell them. Lose the battle to win the war. It's about building relationships and about building trust. Number 2 is always be honest with people. They can see it coming from a mile away. And number 3 is always think there's an end user. And when I say end user, it wasn't about the advisor. It was about they're using this with a client in some fashion. And the more serious that you take that and the more belief that you have that you would do the same thing for a loved one, everything's going to work out right. And I went on a soccer scholarship to Delaware. And my father said, you do that in your work ethic and you're going to hit it okay. And I started my business. And I started almost as this advisor using strategies and theories. I never talked about product. I talked about having a plan in place. And people want what they can't get. They want life insurance when they can't get it. They want long-term care when they can't get it. They want some type of, magic formula when the market gets corrected to help them gain all their money back. It's about planning in advance of the bad. And I preached it and I talked about it nonstop. And as I started to build my practice in the late 90s, by 2000, we became one of the tops at our company. By 2002, I became the #1 person in our industry. And I remember my father calling me, he goes, you're doing pretty good. I'm like, that's right, Dad. I'm doing all right. He said, I think we should talk about you joining my firm. I said, you can't afford me any longer, Dad. That's over now. We're done with that. I found my calling. I found my way of getting my message across, of preparation and planning, but just in a different genre in the same space, actually. And my business just started to go and go and go. And I got married in 2006, and my life started to change. We lived in Philadelphia. We moved out of the city. We moved to the suburbs like most families do, right as our first child's about to be born. And in the summer of 2007, I remember my father saying to me, he goes, "You're about to be a dad." I'm like, "I know." He's like, "Do you do everything you talk about? What do you always say every day?" I go, "Our job is to be there when things are bad. Our job is to give people good news when they need it the most. Our job is to have a plan in place prior to the negative." My dad goes, "Do you do everything you say?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Have you started to do your will? Have you done a power of attorney? Have you started to do your insurance plan?" And I'm like, "Dad, just ran a Tough Mudder. Yeah, I'm a fitness freak. Beast mode, Dad." He goes, "Do you do everything you talk about?" And over the next 2 weeks, I took that seriously and I went out and did things I didn't think I needed to do at my age. You have this Teflon perspective about your health. And I went out and everything I talked about, I 100% did. I would be the shoemaker whose kids had shoes. I thought it was irrelevant, it was unnecessary, but you practice what you preach. And business started to go in 2010. We're living in the suburbs, and my father-in-law was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. It was a horrible situation. He was 60 years old. My first experience with cancer happened when I was 15 years old. My grandma Harriet was diagnosed. I don't remember it enough to really have a perspective on it. What I remember the most is that one day she was Grandma Harriet, the next day she was wearing a turban, and the next day she was gone. The part that really sticks with me is the damage that it did to my family and to my mother. My mom talked to my grandmother every single day. Every weekend, I grew up in Parsippany, New Jersey. They were at our house in the backyard, or we were in Fair Lawn, New Jersey at their house. And I saw this devastation, and I saw this anger, and I saw this just defeated feeling. And it just, I wish I was there. I wish I could have been more there for my mom. I wasn't old enough to get it. I wasn't old enough to digest it. But I built this hatred up for cancer because of what it did to my family. And it didn't care about us. It didn't care about where things were going. It did what it wanted to do when it wanted. When my father-in-law was diagnosed, my wife was very similar with her dad. We come from very different backgrounds, me and my wife. I'm a Jewish guy who grew up in northern New Jersey. Mom was a teacher. Dad was a financial advisor. My wife grew up in mining country, Pennsylvania. She grew up in a Catholic household. She grew up in a 500 square foot row home. Her dad was a highway construction worker. Mom was a janitor. Two very different lifestyles. And I heard all this negativity about in-laws. They're great people. I love them. I mean, we were very different, but me and my father-in-law just liked to drink a beer and watch baseball. And I was convinced to turn him from a Phillies fan into a Yankees fan. That was one of my goals. And when he was diagnosed, what I saw was a warrior. I saw my wife pregnant with a third child every day, drive him 45 minutes down to the University of Pennsylvania. First, he got his Whipple procedure. Then he got his chemo, his radiation. She's got 2 kids under 3, pregnant, and every day doing what she needed to do. Neither of them ever bitched. Neither of them ever complained. They saw what had to be done. They just did it. And I remember sitting with my father-in-law, his name was Larry, one time. And he told me he had 2 goals. His first goal was to see all his grandchildren born. His second goal was that they would all be old enough to have real memories of him. I knew pancreatic cancer had a 7 to 8% survival rate. I knew the shelf life would not be long. But what I watched was inspiring. They just did what they needed to do. They never complained, and they just took on the challenge at hand. And what I later learned is things happen for a reason. And there's a reason that I saw that. So as he was fighting his pancreatic cancer, it was like a roller coaster. It would go up, it would go down, it would go left, it would go right. Every time he thought it was going in one direction, it would go in another. And he was going longer than you would think he would. And in 2013, I was driving on a snowy, miserable, icy day, right in an area of a town called Bridgewater, New Jersey. There's accidents all over the side of the road. I remember thinking, I'm just doing 25 miles per hour. I don't feel like dealing with this. And I'm on this road almost every day for couldn't even tell you how many years. I'm driving up. I hit the brakes to go to a traffic light, and my car flies right into the car in front of me. It flips over, goes into the median area, and I remember holding on to that steering wheel. The airbags go off, and thinking all that working out I do is for this moment right here. And I walked out without a scratch on my body. Police came over, and they're like, "Man, you got to get to the hospital. You okay?" I'm like, "Oh, man, beast mode. I'm good. I'm cool." And I called my wife, and I said, she was down at the hospital with her father going through chemotherapy. And I go, "Listen, the car's totaled. I'm okay." She goes, "You got to go to the hospital." I go, "I'm okay." She reminded me of a story, Dave, about a friend we have named Karen Mancini. She was driving in a town called Bluebell, Pennsylvania. She's at a traffic light and she gets T-boned. The police come over and go, you should go to the hospital just to get checked out. They bring her to the hospital. 3 hours later, the doctor walks in and goes, I want you to send a thank you note and flowers to the person that hit you. We found a brain aneurysm. You'd be dead in 3 hours. I thought about my kids. I thought about my wife. And like a type A personality, I picked up and went on my way and rented a car. And when I came home that night, my head was absolutely killing me. And I never really had a headache before. My wife suffers from chronic migraines. So my father-in-law was going through chemo. He's sitting on the couch. She's dealing with a migraine. I'm sitting there going, oh, my head is killing me. And that's when she basically looked at me and said, your head's killing me. You didn't go to the hospital. Yeah, try getting migraines. Try dealing with that, and walked out. Over the next 2 weeks, the pain got worse and worse every single day. And the only time it stopped hurting, believe it or not, is when I would do exercise. I don't know if it was endorphins or what, but I'd work out and I'd be like, I feel okay. Hour later, I was in massive pain that got worse and worse. I then lost all ability to sleep. I just couldn't sleep any longer. I would fall asleep on the couch at 8:30. I would wake up at 10 and the pain was so severe I couldn't go back to bed. But we're focused on my father-in-law. We're focused on him trying to get better and take on this challenge that is trying to get him when he doesn't want to give in and he's going to fight like a warrior. About 3 weeks later, I was giving a speech. And I speak pretty much professionally for not only my industry, but now obviously much differently. And as I was giving a speech, I was about to make a point, and I felt a hot flash hit me in the face, just like a woman would get. And when that hot flash hit me in the face, slur and gurgle poured out of my mouth. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know what was going on. And I remembered seeing myself standing outside my body going, you're having a stroke. You are having a stroke right now. It felt like an eternity. Turns out it was about 5 to 6 seconds. I got myself together. I'm like, oh God, having trouble sleeping. Kids are all sick at home. Let's bounce back into this. Boom. Presentation goes on. Over the next month and a half, I had 11 more of those. I didn't know what they were. My wife and I would be training for a race. It would happen while we were running. I just didn't get it. When I had that 11th one, 10 more. When I had that 11th one, that's when I knew I had to go to the hospital. And I drove down and I called my wife. I said, she's at the King of Prussia Mall in between her father going through chemotherapy. I drove an hour and a half down to Capitol Health in Hopewell, New Jersey. She met me there. We walked in. They gave me a CAT scan. And they said about 3-4 hours later, Mr. Newman, we know the problem. Again, what's the deal? They told me they had a lesion on the left side of my head. And my first thought was, I probably hit my head in that damn car accident. A lesion's a cut or a bruise. I can't believe. All right, they go, it's causing massive pain. I'm like, you have no idea. You're not having strokes. You're having seizures, actually, because it's in the front part of your brain. But more importantly, it's also preventing you going to sleep. I wasn't upset or angry by this. I was like, yeah, that's the deal. Diagnose it, fix it. That makes sense. And over the next 7 hours, I had to go for MRI after MRI with MRA and with contrast and all this other stuff. At 3 a.m, I had to go for one more. And my wife says to me, she goes, I'm going to go home. I'm going to make lunch for our 3 kids that are under 5. I'm going to get my dad a ride down to chemotherapy, and I'll be back in an hour. I go, I'm going to go in the tube anyway. Don't worry about it. So a nurse comes in with a wheelchair, and she says, Mr. Newman, MRI, MRA, we got to bring you down. I go, hey, I don't need the wheelchair. I just did the Broad Street run in Philly 8 days ago. Beast mode, man. I'm good. They're like, it's liability. You got to get in the wheelchair. And I get in the wheelchair, and the nurse grabs her clipboard. She goes, all right, Mr. Newman, MRI, MRA, again with contrast. We need to see how big your brain tumor is. And that was the moment at 39 I was told I had brain cancer. Life changer right there.
Hey, good looking. Are you currently getting paid to speak? Would you like to ramp that up? We can help. Book a confidential speaker strategy call with our team at doitmarketing.com/call, and let's see what we might do together. The call is free, but the results may be priceless. Now, where did you start to transition to speaking about this versus speaking to financial advisors and the financial services industry? You became like from the business speaker to the cancer speaker, and now I guess you're doing both. How did that transition occur? And how did you even know that there was a market for this? I mean, it sounds like a naive question, and you and I both know better today, but initially it's like, speaking about cancer, lots of people get cancer, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And now lots of people survive cancer, fortunately. And so what made Matt Newman say, you know what? This story's special. This story's worth telling. Let me start to, reach out to my brothers and sisters who are going through this and see if I can help them along.
It's funny. I believe things happen for a reason now. I used to believe in irony. I don't any longer. After the hospital, I had to get a full craniotomy. They had to cut half my head off. They had to pull my jaw back. They had to take the tumor out. I had a grade 3 astrocytoma. I had to go through chemo and radiation. That's a more aggressive grade 3, and it's something that most likely will come back. And everybody finds their outlets of what they need to do. So what I would do as I was going through this is I would start to write. I would send emails out to friends, family members, clients on my perspective, how I was seeing life through a new lens. I was understanding things better. I was getting more clarity on realness and purity, no more shtick any longer. And I was taking things from cancer. And as this was happening, and I would point this out, this is my journey. Cancer is just along for the ride. This different look I had was a gift, and it was a gift I was not going to take back. I learned what strength was. Strength is not how much you bench press. Strength is not how big your arms are. Strength is something that's located deep down in our bellies that at the deepest and darkest of times, we can grab it, we can own it, and we can make it ours. I didn't know I had that, but I saw it and I took it. And for all the positive I was having to deal with all the fear and anxiety that comes along with that, I started writing. So I would send emails out like I mentioned. And here's what I started to get every day. Hey, Matt, could you put my brother and sister on here? Matt, could you put this person on there? Could you put that? And I never really thought about it. But I understood that cancer is like buying a car. You buy a car, you leave the lot, you see that car everywhere. Well, the reality is the car was always there. You never noticed it, so you had a direct connection with it. I looked up and I saw it everywhere. Over 4 years, we had 20,000 people on our email chain. I never read them after I wrote them. They were for me. They made me feel good. They were my catharsis. There was no point. There was no business plan. There was no nothing. So what happened after that is I decided maybe I'll write a book. And I was writing this book for me because it made me feel better. So I wrote this book. And I remember on March 23rd, 2018, I called my mom in Parsippany, New Jersey. I said, hey, Mom, book's coming out tonight. And my mom goes, you know no one's going to buy it, right? I go, oh, God, no. I mean, who cares about me?
What a classic Jewish mother comment, right?
Exactly.
There.
I'm like, yeah, who cares? Who gives a rat's, behind about me?
Yeah, you just survived cancer. I'd rather have the doctor write a book. Right. Let's have the doctor write the book, okay, Matt?
And she said to me, but this was what's great, David. She said to me, she goes, you're going to put 3 copies away in your safe. So when your kids are old enough, they'll be able to know what really happened and really understand it. I said, Mom, yeah. And a week later, we were number 1 on Amazon in 4 different categories. And I went, oh my goodness. And I spoke professionally, basically in the financial services arena. I was speaking all over the place. It's different when you start to have a better perspective of life. And here's what I realized. People are connected to realness and purity. They're sick of the other stuff. They want to know they're not alone on their journey. I don't think my speech is actually anything about cancer, although a lot of people think it is. It's about connection. It's about working with people. It's about not giving tchotchkes away, but giving inspiration. It's about being that extended family member that's there. That's the point of person. That's the point of contact when people need things. Being there for people when things are bad. That's when realness happens. And I started to give these speeches. People would hire me to speak in front of 30, 40 people on connecting better with clients, connecting better with prospects, but at the same time sharing my story about being there when things are bad and putting it all together. And it's like a band. One day you're doing it in a small bar and it's kind of cool and it's a little side thing. Then you're doing it in front of thousands and thousands of people on large stages. And what I realized is we would sign books afterwards and nobody really wants my signature. People will stand in line 3-4 hours to say, could you make this out to my brother-in-law, to this client, to this person? And then I would get messages. I get 3 to 5 messages every day from someone I never met in my life. And I realized what people want is they want something that's real. And they want a connection of honesty and integrity. And while everything I preached in the past, I 100% agree with today, I have a better perspective of what people are looking for, whether it's connecting through business, with clients, with prospects, with family members, but allowing people to know, I care and I'm here for you. I do a little speech for people, for anybody who's in the sales industry, of the day of giving golf balls is over. It's foolish. When was the last time you gave a sleeve of golf balls to a client and they wrote you a letter, handwritten, that said this, Dave, those golf balls, I can't tell you how much they mean to me. Every time I look at them, they make me want to give you referrals and become a part of your business. When I lose them in the woods, I'm going to look for 9 hours to make sure I never give them back because they remind me of you and want to help you grow your business and whatnot. And people started to hand my book out all over the world, actually. And I was blown away. And the reason I think it's done so well is because there was no business plan. There was no ghostwriter. There was no marketing. I 100% did it because it made me feel better. And I learned that when you do things just for the right reasons, that's when they can go in some special directions.
Wow. Absolutely right. And we're going to talk more at the end about website and book, but I know people are dying going, what's the name of the book? What's the name of the book? So it's Starting at the Finish Line. Starting at the Finish Line is the title of Matt's fantastic book. And the subtitle is My Cancer Partner, Perspective and Preparation. And just in case you want some external validation of what Matt is saying about how awesome and amazing the book is and how it is making a tremendous impact, 159 five-star reviews on Amazon. And that's, I know, just a small fraction of the people that have bought the book and been impacted by the book because you've sold thousands and thousands of them. But talk a little bit about how do you balance your executive role, your sales role in the financial services industry, and how does that leverage? And I'll just give you a quick example. Someone that we had on the show a little while ago, they're a stand-up comedian, and they're also a speaker and a trainer. And what she said was, people hire me for the training and the speaking because they know I have this other side and I'm a full three-dimensional human being. So whether they come to one of my comedy shows or not, they just think it's really cool that I do comedy on the side. And each of those endeavors, one, a personal passion, and then her professional passion, really intersect and they feed each other. Tell us how that works in your world, or just how do you keep all those plates spinning at the same time?
It's a great question that you ask. And I would tell you that my role as doing what I do as a senior vice president and all that kind of stuff, that's my career. I always anticipated the other thing would just kind of go away. And it doesn't. And it gets bigger and the stages get bigger. And, now we're speaking at some really amazing things. And what I've realized is that you can do them together. Listen, I'm a father of three. I appreciate life. I look at it from a different perspective. I try and spend as much time with my family and children as possible. But I also have a better understanding of efficiency. And I think people waste way more time than they need to. And the more efficient that we are, the more we're able to do multiple different things, but yet have our own personal time as well. So for me, I know my clientele, they love seeing me doing all this because they know they can reach me at any moment. I'm always there. I'm always there for them. I'm there when things are bad. They know I'm a phone call, a text message, whatever it's going to be away. And I think they love the fact that someone they've built long relationships with, someone they trust, someone they've done a lot of business with over the years, is doing something, that's really got no self-centered component to it. It's about paying it forward to me. I get more satisfaction often of getting a message from someone whose life we touched, who needed to read something, who now has the fire that they need to be there for their family at a difficult time, sometimes than I do from a sale. And if you would have told me that 7 years ago, I would have said, you are out of your mind. I was the number one guy at a company for 20 years in a row. That was my passion. There is no second place. Things change. And you know what? My business continues to go up because I just have a better perspective on it. And I think when you match honesty and realness, like I mentioned earlier, and you create more efficiency doing it, I think people enjoy watching it and they know that you're one of them and you're doing something special. And then when my clients give a book to someone and they get a response of, I just gave it to 3 friends. Thank you so much. I needed that. That's life-changing. And that's something I never anticipated happening. I have no problem. And now it's something that I relish the opportunity to do something for someone who needs it because I get it. And I get it from the perspective that they're in often. And it's not about cancer, even though that's what a lot of my book is on. It's about challenging times and preparation and planning. And if we sell it through products, you got a 50-50 shot. You live by the products, you die by the products. I don't care what industry you're in. You sell through stories that people relate to, that rope just got a lot longer.
Yeah, for sure. I'm wondering though, Matt, because one of the things that's both on the website and on the book description for Starting at the Finish Line is all of the things that you were teaching and preaching, like you got to believe in the product, etc. What do you do? People turn to you when times are tough. You were able to transfer or at least redefine some of those mantras and principles and sound bites. And now they're, like you said, it's not about financial services. It's not about sales, not even about cancer. These are life principles, but you were able to transfer some of them from what you would teach and preach to your financial advisors. Now it's a new version of some of those same mantras and some of that same DNA that you're teaching to cancer survivors and healthcare groups and doctors and patients and HR managers and sales leaders and executives. How did you realize, because it takes some good self-awareness to be able to zoom out to 10 or 15,000 feet and go, wait a minute, that applies not only here, but I can apply that lesson over here. And that's not only about the financial services industry, that's about any industry, or that's not just about business life, it also applies to our personal life. How did you make that shift or that transfer, or what were some of the aha moments that lit the way?
There's a couple things, actually. One, my belief got deeper. Like, if someone wanted to disagree with me, frankly, I don't care. Go wear my shoes for a while, see what I've been, see the perspective that I've been given, something I will not give back. And what I have a better understanding of is that my belief is accurate. And my belief is accurate because I was the shoemaker his kids had shoes. What you heard me say earlier was my father called me and said, "Are you doing all the planning?" I laid in a hospital bed and waiting for my father, my mom, and my in-laws. And I'd like to call my father-in-law my cancer partner. I'm waiting for them to come to the hospital for the first time. And I know my parents are going to get there and they're going to be supportive and they're going to have fear, hatred, and anger in their eyes because you hear your son has brain cancer, it means he's going to die. That's what it means. I remember turning to my wife and going, "Give me the iPad for a minute." She goes, "Oh, they'll be here in like 20 minutes. Do you want to watch a movie?" I go, "Give me the iPad for a minute." And that's when I realized I needed to make sure everything was in line. And I pulled up my will, and I pulled up my power of attorney, and I pulled up my life insurance, and I pulled up my college planning. And I will never forget sitting there and going, wow, every speech I ever gave was actually about me. And what it allowed me to do was focus on the fight at hand because I had no regret, no resentment, no negativity, woulda, coulda, shoulda. I said, done, done, done. What's next? Oh, you're going to cut my head open? Okay, cool. What else we got to do? And that was the moment that I realized that planning and preparation, regardless what field it's in, give you the freedom to fight and not sit there and have worry that clouds your vision of where you want to go. And that became 100% solidified in my mind at that given moment.
What a great episode. Wowza. Tell you what, if you want to ramp up your revenue as an expert who speaks professionally, you should really check out our free online training at doitmarketing.com/webinar. Well, let me ask you this, because one of the legends in the speaking industry, Larry Winget, says there's two parts to building a successful business. And you made mention of both of these, but I want to dig in a little bit more into the second one. Number one, be really, really, really good at what you do. So the whole story about authenticity and connection and writing the book that you needed to read. So fantastic product is what we're selling here. So tenet number one, be really, really good at what you do. Tenet number two, ask lots of people to buy. So I want to ask you, Matt, about what is your prospecting, outreach, sales strategy, lead generation specifically. How do you make more people aware that you're available to speak, that you have this fantastic book, you have this amazing track record, you've done the TEDx talk, all of these things that are in your arsenal? How do you reach out to new clients and new speaking prospects so that you can engage them in a conversation about how you can help their group?
So I'll tell you, when this all first started, I'd never been on social media in my life. I didn't do any type of marketing, anything. When this started to go and I wrote the book and it started to sell, I realized, oh man, I better have like a website or something like that. So I had this great little website put together just about the book. That's it. Like, click on here, it'll take you to Amazon. I was like, oh my God, I got a website. This is so cool. I never anticipated that in a million years. And I would start to get called by speaker bureaus. Or I'd start to get called by companies that wanted me to speak. And then go, okay, Mr. Newman, here's what we're going to need. We're going to need your headshot, a link to your website. We're going to need some past testimonials. And I would sit there and go, huh? I had none of that. And that was perspective for me that you have to run this like a business. we started a separate business. I made my wife the CEO of the company. I needed someone who was going to run this without the emotion that I was going to have. We created a real website. I hired marketing people. And I hope what you're getting from this is that you have to invest. You have to. And anybody's saying you can do it grassroots organically in another way, at some point you have to invest. And I went from going, wow, this is great. I can't believe I'm doing a couple speaking gigs to we have a marketing company that a lot of the stuff on social media, they do for me. They do a lot of the emails that we send out, and I approve everything, of course. And delegation is not a bad thing. I remember in my finance industry, which is, my passion as well too, I wanted to do everything myself. And one time, I was sitting with someone that I respected, and they said, listen, you got to focus on what you do best. There's a reason in football, there's a head coach, there's an offensive coordinator, there's defense, there's a linebackers coach. And I started delegating. And oh man, business just popped. And I realized I could focus on what I do. So the first thing that I would say is that if it's something you truly believe in, something you want to reach people, you want to touch them, you want to let them know that you're there has to be some type of marketing plan. There has to be some type of investment of what you're going to be doing. Otherwise, you're just winging it. And that's what I did at the beginning. And now when someone calls and says, here's what I need, my response is, what do you want? Do you want TEDx talk videos? Do you want me on ESPN? Tell me, what are you looking for? Do you want main stage speeches that are all over YouTube? What would you like? And then you realize you're much more organized and you're able to convey to the people that want to bring you in, here's who I am, here's what I do, instead of, I hope it works out.
Yeah, very, very powerful. And what you're talking about there, Matt, is something that we teach our clients all the time. It's the magic phrase, what would you like to see from me to be considered for this keynote slot, for this conference, et cetera? And then, like you said, having the array of arsenal of, do you want the one sheet? Do you want some PDFs? Do you want some testimonials? Do you want my video? Do you want a 3-minute? Do you want a 10-minute? Do you want to see a whole keynote end to end? Do you want a copy of my book? I'm happy to put that in the mail to you. Is there a committee? How many books would you like, right? So these kinds of things. This tells a meeting planner or a conference producer that they're dealing with a professional.
That's correct.
Your initial comment in the early days was like, huh? That means that we're not dealing with a professional.
I didn't know what I was, and I was the guy who would always be a speaker with these paid speakers, but I would speak on behalf of a company. So
Right.
I actually digested a lot of this early, which I didn't understand. And then later in life, when I go through all this, I learned a couple lessons. I'll give you a point on this I think you'll like. So I was giving a speech at Westgate in Las Vegas, maybe, a few thousand people. So your perspective changes when you go through difficult times. I take my 2 boys with me. I have 3 children, and we're out in Las Vegas. And as soon as I'm done, we're going to sneak out of there and we're going to go spend some time together. And we're going to go to a mountain and go snowboarding, because I wouldn't have done that in the past. I do that now. It's about me and my kids. So I put them in the green room. And the person who goes up before me, and I'll leave names out of it, is a very, very, very well-known economist who's all over TV. And I like that stuff. So I'm actually standing on the side of the stage watching. So he finishes, I go up there, they introduce me, and this is on YouTube, you can see it. And I finished my speech, full standing ovation. And the woman who's hosting grabs me and gives this huge hug. She's like, oh my God, you killed it. I go, I'm kind of hard on myself, but I think it was pretty good. She goes, you just got a standing ovation in front of her. I go, yeah, thanks. She says, how do you know you kill it? I go, what do you mean? She goes, how do you know? She goes, I've seen you speak now in a number of different cities. I go, do you really want to know? She goes, yeah, I want to know. I go, okay, I'll share something with you. When you speak with slides changing, when you speak with data on markets, on sales potential, with all this other stuff, 90% of the room will be staring at their phone. They want to say they were in that meeting. They have no freaking idea what you're talking about because there was no connection in any way whatsoever. They don't care. You know how I know I kill it? She goes, how? I go, every eye is on me because they're hanging on. We're hitting their heartstrings. We're doing something that's real. 3 weeks later, they had a revolving photographer. So she sent me all these pictures. She sent me 8 pictures of the crowd, and every person is eye to eye making contact with me. And she goes, you were dead on. And the point that I bring up is that we could say we want to see this person, but we have no idea what they're talking about, nor do we care. They're speaking a different vernacular than us. It sounds cool. The person who hits you in the heartstrings, you're waiting on every word, and they're going to get their point across better. And to people that are hiring speakers, to people that are selling, how are you really connecting with people to make that mark where the products don't matter, they buy you? And once you do that, you've taken your business to a new level.
Love it. Wow, that's a great place to wrap up. You just stuck the landing like just boom. So let's ask what everyone wants to know. How do people get connected and stay connected to more Matt Newman brilliance? Where can we send them? Website, blog, books, and we're going to link all of this up under this episode when people pop over to the website, thespeakingshow.com, right under the Matt Newman episode, all of these links. Matt, where can we send folks?
The easiest way to do it is my website is Matthew, Matthew, S as in Stephen, Newman, Newman. Let me point this out. My mom is the only one who calls me Matthew, but the website is MatthewSNewman.com. On there, if you go to the book section, it takes you right to Amazon. You can go on Barnes & Noble, Goodreads, all that stuff, but Amazon's probably the easiest way to do it. It has all the interviews. It has testimonials. It has speaking with ESPN, TED Talks, podcasts, periodical type stuff. It's the easiest way. And on there, there's a direct contact to us as well, too. I will tell you, one of the things we do a lot of, much more than I ever anticipated, is we sign a lot of books. Anybody could reach out to us directly. We get our books the same way that somebody else would. And we do absolutely no markup in any way. And we write direct messages to people on behalf of others. And that is one of the most amazing things we do, of the responses we get back of someone who's going through a difficult time, a family member, someone who needs inspiration. And as we get towards the holidays, it's something you can do that will really leave a mark on somebody and not just be the same golf balls that everybody else gives.
Hashtag no more golf balls. Matt Newman, you're awesome. Thank you so much for being with us. This was tremendous.
Thank you so much for having me. It was an absolute honor. And again, what a great last name we have.
Newman versus Newman, the smackdown. Well, that wraps up another episode of The Speaking Show. Hey, tell you what, if you like us, rate us and review us on iTunes. Subscribe. Tell a friend. Go grab the notes and downloads and extras at thespeakingshow.com. See you next time.